All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. Today, we're going to talk about DuckDB. It's a very interesting analytics data store and tool to analyze data. We use this in our new course for the Academy, and I thought, let's bring on somebody who can tell us more about this because I think it's a really cool solution. I'm going to, in a second, bring on Mehdi here. Mehdi is here for the second time. He's actually a developer advocate for DuckDB, so he knows about it and he can tell us a lot about it. So let me bring on Mehdi here. Hey, Mehdi.
Hello. It's nice to be back for a different purpose, but it's fun.
It's true. Last time we talked about, I think about skills for data engineers, right?
Yeah, and actually it's funny. Someone else pinged me about that topic, and I did a live stream in French, my first one in French, 3 weeks ago. And I had to revive this project because it was dead. Google killed Data Studio, so it's online back again.
Nice.
But anyway, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so as I said, we were looking into DuckDB, and all around the internet, everybody's talking about DuckDB lately. So I think you're the right guy to tell us a bit more about it. So for everybody, the agenda a bit. Mehdi and I talked a bit about this. He's going to tell us a bit why DuckDB and the benefits, and he also has a short demo. And we're going to talk about use cases, some really cool use cases. Yeah. So, if you have questions for Mehdi, put them in the chat. Give us your questions. We're here to help, and we're excited for this. Santiago here says, "Great topic." It is. So let's dive into it. Yeah, Mehdi. DuckDB.
Yeah. It's been I mean you've seen, like, I think I shared with you the website, right, on duckdbstats.com, but it is pretty crazy. We passed million downloads per week, and only on the Python package. I'll do a short intro, but it is really taking off significantly these past months.
So why do you think that is the past months?
I think multiple things. We DuckDB went 1.0, and MotherDuck, so the serverless analytics platform that hosts DuckDB, is also GA now. So there is those things, and because it went 1.0, it was 0 dot X something before. I think a lot of people were reluctant to really dive in to say they might be breaking change. Like, that's the goal. If you an early adapter, is that things might break, and you might not want to put like production pipeline. You poke around, you do side project. But I think this is what triggers people to really like, oh yeah, I do trust like DuckDB can bring a lot to my data stack, but I'm not ready to commit before 1.0. I think that's often the case in historical tools, right? Kafka was the same. Kafka was really there was a lot of early adopter before 1.0, and I think there was like a huge spike when it started.
So before everybody who's not that educated about DuckDB, Kevin, can you give us an introduction? What is DuckDB? What do people use this for? Why is this so awesome?
Yeah, sure. I have a couple of slides, so maybe we can go ahead.
Yeah, I have a scene here for this. You just need to share the slides, and then
yeah, it's already shared.
Wait, 1 sec. I think I can bring this. Yeah.
Yes. So, I think the point, you put a poll recently, like people. I'm going to go to that poll after. You put a recent poll on LinkedIn, but the question is, what makes a great database? And basically, people think usually on 3 points. It's like how resilient and correctness it is. The performance, the ease of use. The 4 is a bit like, the bonus, right? But it is important, right? To make our work a bit more fun, right? So, and the answer in general that we've seen with DuckDB is really the ease of use. Um, this picture, or actually this is a version, if you know the mad landscape, there is a version from Lake FS, right, which is just the data engineering tool in 2024.
Yeah,
That gave us, you and me, right, nightmares.
that's
But
right.
the point is, it's really difficult to keep up, and it's really difficult to know, how you need to tie it up all those things together. And that's where DuckDB comes. It's like, it's really easy of use. I have a short demo, and you're going to
Mm,
see that with just one installation, DuckDB is built in C++. You just download the binary. You can use the CLI. You can do already a lot of things without any external dependency, and I think that's what people like. It's like kind of refreshing in this context. But Mehdi, what about performance? Right, you might challenge me, like everybody's there with their benchmark, and don't worry, DuckDB is fast, really fast. But I think there is a notion between the time between when I click run and something is being executed, right,
mm,
versus the time I have a question and I want an answer. These are
true.
not the same. Um, and so this is where DuckDB it is. And just like a quick recap of introduction, like DuckDB WaterDuck. So DuckDB was created at CWI, which is a research institute in Amsterdam, by Hannes and Mark on this picture. And they founded DuckDB Labs and the DuckDB community and foundation. And DuckDB Labs' goal is really to have project around DuckDB open source. And MotherDuck is really the commercial product of DuckDB, and we have tight partnership with them. But it's kind of a new business model where MotherDuck is not the creator of the open source project, and so that's good for bad, meaning that we cannot prevent any free features to go out, right? Um, but and that gives them freedom, but that makes sometimes a bit more challenging for different things. Um, so yeah, DuckDB is a lightweight in-process SQL analytics engine. And so in short term, if you're using the Python client, there is different client, you can just do pip install. It's like a SQLite. You don't need to have any specific server or whatsoever running.
Mm.
And so if you look at the landscape of database, it's really a new kind of database, because in process you have SQL for transactional, and you have like the PostgreSQL. And analytical, you have ClickHouse, BigQuery, and other stuff. But this is a really new kind of database. And as I mean,
It's
yeah,
it's actually very interesting because like when I'm coming always from the educational standpoint, right? What we do in the academy, and when we did the relational data modeling course, I said, okay, let's do something that is very easy to use, and we actually decided on SQLite.
yeah, uh,
And then we said, okay, then I said, okay, now we need also a dimensional modeling. Let's use something for dimensional modeling that is as easy to use, and for especially for learners, for people who to start out. And we went for DuckDB because it was so easy to use and easy to teach on top of DuckDB.
yeah. No, so this is actually something we've seen a lot. All SQL course, like in university in the United States, there is a couple of universities switching their course to using DuckDB. For that specific teaching purpose, it's the simple way to get a SQL interface, where you can crunch already like quite some significant data, where SQLite is also working, but it doesn't, the workload is not for designed for analytical queries, right? Um, so yeah, that's really a new kind of database. It runs anywhere. So this is the things where I'm going to talk a bit about. I'm going to do a small demo using the CLI, but you can just do pip install, npm install if you're Node.js, or if you're a Java lover still. I'm curious, do you still have users like or feedback in your students looking for Java course in data?
No.
No. I think it's used everywhere in enterprise, but no one wants to learn it. I think that's the
This
problem,
could
no?
be.
So yeah, and so we've just DuckDB, as I said, it's single binary. You can read and write to a lot of file formats. Delta Lake is not there on this picture, but it's actually also supported now. And DuckDB has its own file format, which is DuckDB file format. It's a one file database where it can contains all the tables and it support ASCII transaction. So it's also pretty neat for a storage, and MotherDuck use that storage in the cloud. So that's also pretty efficient to, to move data around. Um, I just see that we have a question. Does DuckDB have any connection to any free data governance tool? So if you're referring more to data catalog and so on, it's coming, but it's more on MotherDuck side because you need to host the data somewhere, right? DuckDB is open source. You're free to host your data anywhere you want, but that's where MotherDuck comes into play. We manage that for you.
Yeah, how is that for most users? Because it's a how was the name for it? Integrated database. It's a you had it on the slides before. I'm blanking. Why am I blanking on this easy thing?
No problem.
Like because it's not like Snowflake or something, right? It's a it has a bit of a different purpose for I'm guessing for most users.
Yeah, I mean, those databases have been designed, with scaling with multiple machine, right? Scaling out rather than scaling up. So DuckDB embraces a single node where you basically use your common entity hardware, which is actually really powerful when you think of that, because this phone basically is the what you had, or maybe half of that what you had in your laptop like 10 years ago, right? Um, so there is a whole story of leveraging more the compute versus the cloud. And this is where you're going to see in the demo that if you are super happy with DuckDB running locally, then scaling to the cloud is really easy because it's just moving that DuckDB in the cloud, where Snowflake, BigQuery, you cannot have like those one running, locally with fast iteration. BigQuery had an emulator back then. I remember a couple of years back. But it's still like, even if they provide, so it's not like the core design is mean on a single node, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Embedded was what I'm missing
yeah,
the word.
embedded.
Basically, you can run these as an embedded
In process,
source.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the thing is, if you start running DuckDB and you don't provide a file path where you're going to store your DuckDB database, everything you're going to do is going to stay in memory, and it's embedded in the process. So coming back to the pip install Python, it's living in the Python process. So wherever you have a Python runtime, you can have DuckDB.
Yeah.
And also the cool thing is that it plays really well with library like pandas and polars due to Apache Arrow. Apache Arrow is like a standard in-memory format. And so you have zero copy if you want to convert a DuckDB result into a Panda data frame or a Polars data frame, or reading. Also, you can query a Panda data frame using DuckDB. And you may ask, like, I'm already playing the devil advocate, but why would you do that? So, like, what's the advantage versus pandas, for example? Well, a lot of people have been actually speeding up some data processing parts with just using a query, DuckDB, and query their panda data frame. So they refactor some of part of the code using that. So that we've seen a lot. And Polars, like that's mostly a different kind of like I would say mindset. Polaris is a data frame library. Well, DuckDB, again, there is a file format. It's a full database fledged. So there is also different goals over there. But you can use both of them together pretty easily. That's the keyword.
That's cool. So basically, you don't have to get the results and then transform the results into a data frame. basically directly delivers you
Yeah,
the data.
and
That's
there is
awesome.
no overhead due thanks to Apache Arrow, because
That's
that's
awesome.
they all support that. And I think like this is not talked a lot in the data ecosystem, that Apache Arrow is a really true hero behind the scene. It's kind of the Batman, because no one is talking about. But the fact that you can convert this result back and forth with zero overhead is all thanks to this standard definition.
Okay.
So data source and destination, that's also really big. You can connect and query directly Postgres SQL using DuckDB. So you're going to process using your DuckDB process, but directly reading from a Postgres database. So it's really fast. Same for any object storage, S3, Google Cloud Storage. So we have a lot of people that start, their analytics journey. I guess you have that also on Postgres, because they have their application there on MySQL. Then what's the next step? Usually you move the data around to, a dedicated database or in a data lake. Here you don't need. That's the thing, is that you install DuckDB anywhere you want, or you use MotherDuck, and you can start querying your table from there.
I mean, it's also from a developer side. If it can be really annoying if you have to do a lot of setup before you even get started, right? And then
Yeah.
this can be so annoying. So if you just quickly have something here and set it up, and even if you want to try something out, can
Yeah.
quickly try something out. Oh, okay, that works. That works. This is how I can bring this into production. That's a huge benefit, I think.
Yeah. So again, to coming back to my initial slides, right? Simplicity. So that's really the key word, is that we have so much things to do, so much things integration. So let's take actually a quick example. I can share my screen for a quick demo. Let's say I want to read data from S3. I have already AWS credential. That's the only requirement. And how would you do it? Let me share my full window here. All right, I share my full screen. So how would you do it if you need to read data from S3, let's say Parquet from S3, with 4 lines of code? There is a trap: installation included. So I'm challenging you, right, to think, okay, yeah, I could use Python, or maybe I could use the AWS CLI, but I cannot run any analytical query SQL with the AWS CLI. I can copy, maybe do cat, some terminal stuff. And with Python, I already have to install a couple of package and dependency. So it's probably more than that. And so this is where I want to use this challenge flow. So let me bring this up, and actually I'm gonna I have a couple of demo file here. So it's all start with sorry, you're not seeing the right screen.
Not seeing the right screen. Then
Wait, I'm gonna share the entire screen. That's gonna be better. There you go.
let's see.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So it's all start with the installation, right? So if you're in a terminal and Mac OS, you can install DuckDB just installing the brew packaging manager. If you're on Windows or Linux, you can install in different ways. I have a couple of things that is going to be upgraded, but it's done. So that's one line, right? I'm querying
Okay.
S3 data from a private bucket, right? It's a private bucket. So one line, the installation. 2 line, I'm launching the DuckDB process. So now I have DuckDB running in memory, right? And I can start running some SQL query. Second line. Now what I'm going to do here is just loading my AWS credential. And so what it does behind the scene is that, you see, I'm just calling a specific function. Maybe zooming it like this.
Yeah,
See the text.
it's better like this. Yeah.
What it does is DuckDB has built-in extension to read from Parquet, to read from Delta Lake, to read from Hugging Face datasets. And you only need to call the function that you want, or you're going to see when reading the Parquet file, just say, I want to query that Parquet file. And DuckDB will load their internal DuckDB extension. So that's the beauty thing, again, simplicity. I don't need to know which dependency I need to do. I just call this and my AWS credential is ready. And so this is my query. I'm gonna launch, I think this is the one I wanted to launch. So what I'm doing here, I'm just gonna run it. So you see, actually it took like 4 seconds. And the data set here is around 100 megabytes. And
Okay.
it's not that big, right? We're gonna go bigger just after. Don't worry. But the point here is that you see how fast what it was, right? It's like I'm doing a query on a specific data set, Parquet, and actually here it's the daily PyPI daily stats. So one row is one download of DuckDB Python library, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what I ask is just that, okay, from all the data since, April this year, group by Python version. And you can see that most of the people have actually Python 3.10. And the next one it's funny, is Python 3.8, which gonna be end of support in a couple of months, end of this year. So please do your due diligence and upgrade your Python, because a lot of people don't. That's the key takeaway for this query.
True.
But you see, again, for this query, I didn't have to specify anything like I'm going to query on S3. So which kind of package do I need? I want to read Parquet. I want to read CSV, Delta Lake. No, you don't. You just point to the files, and DuckDB is handling the extension for you. And those extensions actually are here. So this is a table function, and you see I have all the list of the internal extension, and you see the one that are installed and loaded. And so, for example, I just loaded my AWS credential, so it used the AWS extension for that. And now it's basically loaded at this point of time. And so,
But
4 lines of code to do a query on an S3 bucket.
but still, that means the data needs to be downloaded from the bucket, right? So if you have a large file, you need to wait until the data is
exactly.
Right.
So now this is where MotherDuck comes into play, because MotherDuck is in the cloud, so you can basically use the fact that we are on the cloud. On top of that, our infrastructure is on AWS. So if you query from MotherDuck, that's going to be much faster, right? And the beauty of it is that, coming back there. So I'm on the CLI. When you have something running on Python locally or whatsoever, and you need to put this data pipeline to the cloud, like have something running locally, there is quite some, work to do there. You need to open a cloud account. You need to set up IAM policies and so on. Here, the only thing you need to know, you sign up for MotherDuck, and you need a MotherDuck token. And I have my MotherDuck token in my environment available. And so if I do this, what's going to happen is basically saying attach the MotherDuck database cloud. So I'm just going to run show database. So you see, I just have one database at the moment, right?
Yep.
It's the in-memory database.
Yep.
And so now if I do attach MD column, I'm going to connect to MotherDuck. And of course, this is a demo and it's failing. And I've been working to report to the whole day. Let's start again.
This is always the same thing.
It's always like this.
Really, it's always like this.
This is because I connected to a public bucket, and so it doesn't like it before anyway. Small thing. So now if I put show databases, you see I have my cloud databases. So if I run, for example, this this query is going to run in the cloud basically and return back the results. And actually here it's a pretty large table, so I was not really smart on doing this. But the point is, you have a one-step connection to just query the connection to Mother Duck. I'm gonna just to show the kind of environment you can have, because it's also a bit more clear for people less comfortable with terminal. So basically, this is the MotherDuck UI, and you can run the same query that you can run locally with MotherDuck Cloud. The cool thing is that anyway you can run MotherDuck. So here I'm running to the UI, but if I want to run it on the CLI or on Python, this is always the same basically setup. Two things I wanted to show is that you can run data sets. You can run directly from Hugging Face. So if I spawn against another DuckDB process, and I'm doing a from this CSV. So this CSV that I'm reading now is from Hugging Face dataset. And you see, I didn't have to install anything. I can query any Hugging Face dataset directly due to the internal extension mechanism. So that's about the CLI. One thing I want to show, so we were talking about performance. So this is what I want to show basically. So if we launch, I'm connecting to MotherDuck. What I can do here basically is that I'm creating secrets in MotherDuck based on my local secrets. That's as simple as that. It's one command, and then I have my secrets AWS credential provisioned over there. Based on my SSO logging, which is working locally.
Cool.
And so if I run now this query, and so this is again on a private bucket, this is using the cloud. And so this is much faster. And here I'm going to give you a rather bigger query. And then I'm going to wait. If I select things, that's going to be better. And so here again, I'm querying S3 data sets. With this one, is much larger. It's about 2 gigabytes, and it's doing a couple of things. There is a subquery, there is an MD hash, and you see it talks about like 20 seconds to query this. And so we have a lot of also more than 300 row return. But it's just to show you that you can easily swap from a local work using DuckDB to offload things to MotherDuck. And the big thing, which is sometimes not clear for people, is that here I've been using S3 file because a lot of people are working with lakes, right, or Parquet on object storage. But again, you can use the table format of DuckDB, which is working really great. Build your table, DuckDB table locally, and then just upload it to MotherDuck. That works also really nicely.
I find this really cool that you can, like, from a developer side, it's very easy to install. You can just try stuff out locally. I have an idea. Let's figure out how to solve that problem. Do this locally, and then the actual jump to the cloud is not complicated, and it's exactly the same. It works exactly the same as on local.
Yeah.
I think that because that is very often like, oh man, now I need to deploy this. Deployment is not that easy, and then actually the target system might be a bit different, or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, indeed. So yeah, it's again,
Okay.
it's simplicity, and I challenge you like to do the challenge I did, like with only 4 lines with the installation included. I think it's really hard. Like I don't know, and I always tell people that if I would leave MotherDuck and not talking about DuckDB as part of my work, I will still use DuckDB because like I'm probably biased, but I'm using Polars and other stuff, but I haven't found any toolkit that you can use locally and just as easy going to the cloud. So the second thing I want to show you is basically kind of use cases, and I have like it's just to recap a bit on what you can do with DuckDB. So that's kind of what we do as we did like so far today using the CLI right here. But you can use Python, use Jupyter Notebook, you can use Golang, Node.js, and more. You can read local file, CSV, Parquet, JSON, Iceberg, or remote file. You can connect directly to Postgres or MySQL, or you can leverage MotherDuck, edit a query directly using MotherDuck, using any client, right? Because I use the CLI client, but if you use Python, it's the same way. You just provide the MotherDuck token and you're connected. And so typically the task for that we've seen is like you want to ingest data from various external source. You want to convert file format, let's say CSV to Parquet. And fun fact is that I have a script here to convert any CSV to Parquet. So I say convert that CSV to Parquet or Parquet to CSV. And what it does is just a DuckDB one-line code, right?
Okay.
So this is like where how powerful it is. It's really damn stupid, but here it's like yeah, sometimes you need to convert some file here and there or JSON or parsing them. So parsing API typically JSON data works also pretty well. And so yeah, and people are using MotherDuck kind of as a shared storage because with DuckDB you kind of like on a standalone solo player. But then as soon as you need to share a database, that's a bit more complicated. And so, for example, if you connect to, just let me go back to the UI quickly. So you see this little icon with a person next to it. It means that it's a shared database. And if you create a MotherDuck account today, you're going to have those shared database available for you, a simple data. And if you want to share a database, you just click share, and you can share a database either publicly or just within a specific scope of your organization. So yeah, so that's the first main use case we talked about. The second thing I wanted to dive in is more ETL pipeline itself. So that's usually involve I have data on object storage and I want to push them back to another object storage in another file format. I'm doing some compute, and there you can use Python and DuckDB. So I said like work pretty well, and you can use DBT. And I think what's crazy with DBT,
That, that, that is interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
So with DBT is that you cannot run DBT without any cloud data warehouse because DBT is a framework to run SQL pipeline, and it's always relying on a SQL engine, and those SQL engine is called DBT adapter. It's Snowflake, BigQuery, and so on until DuckDB. So you can have a DuckDB running locally, and you can start basically running DBT locally. And when you're ready to scale to the cloud, again, there's not so much difference. It's just changing a profile. And actually, I have, I think I opened that somewhere here. So I have a small project also here, and let me share actually with people. Maybe I can share it with you if you can send it. So there is a project where you have ingestion and a DBT example. But if you're familiar with DBT, basically what you define here is the adapter. And here is where my temporary database is going to be. Um, and here what I'm doing on this example precisely is just ranking what's the air quality based, I think, on by city and year. So I'm pulling data from S3. So you see, this is the public data set. And I want to write the results locally through CSV. And how I do that is to macro, if I think. It's been a while since I read. But those is going to be appearing into the output folder here. Let me click here. So when I'm going to run basically this pipeline, I'm going to have output CSV where air quality ranking out here. And the thing is, this seems really stupid. So I'm going to run it. It's not using, it's not using any cloud data warehouse. It's just using my local compute. And it's living into the Python runtime because DBT is using Python behind the scene, right?
Yep.
And so that's it. Now I have my two CSV, which are here, which is ranking based on the models. And I read data from Parquet on S3 and write it down directly. If I want to connect to MotherDuck, this is in the example I just shared. Let me go to that repo. So this is a really production database.
By the way, I posted this in the chat.
Yeah.
This link I posted in the chat.
So you can check it out. But basically, the only thing you need to specify to MotherDuck is this. I'm connecting to MotherDuck, and I want to connect to this database. And this database is actually available for share, so you can query it directly. But this is the only thing that you need to change to switch. So you have really a good development experience, as you mentioned. You iterate locally, and then when you're ready to deploy, you go there. And just to conclude on this project, so you have this dashboard, which is giving you the statistic of Python download for DuckDB. And this is a live project. So there is data pipeline running every day and feeding that dashboard using Python and DuckDB and DBT.
Wow.
So yeah, that's roughly the second example. If I'm going, sorry, multi tab. So this one, right? Transform data using friendly SQL, run DBT pipeline with other cloud data warehouse, enabling faster iteration, and then you can use easily MotherDuck to scale. Have you also used DuckDB in your DB? Do you do DBT courses?
I have one. I have a DBT course, but in that I've been using Snowflake for this. That's actually because Roman. Let me bring in Roman's question here because that fits really well to this. Let's get it like this. For data engineering noobs like me trying to connect this to data engineering, to the academy, two questions: where would DuckDB fall in your categorization, and what specific lessons would you recommend to learn? Like as I said, I don't have this. I don't have DuckDB in my academy, but when I look at what I've done with DBT and with Snowflake, this is something where you could easily then now, because Mehdi said it has a connect, or you can use DBT with it. Yeah. This is something where you can replace Snowflake and just go with this, right?
Yeah. So a lot of small startups that have not data as big. That's typically the kind of user they start. It's exactly as you said. You try something, like your first step into analytics. You need to try locally. You just download DuckDB open source, and then when you're ready to scale. But the step of going to Snowflake or another is sometimes, it's already quite a commitment to just sign up to those things.
The other thing also is, from what I have, from what you've shown with the 4 lines, basically, when you have done this with tools like Snowflake, it's not that easy. Like you
Create
have
the
to,
external table.
yeah, it's an annoying step. Let's say it like this. It's still, I would still categorize DuckDB as an analytics store, as an analytics.
Yeah.
Let's not call it database, but store. But as you've just shown, like for simple transformations that are really really helpful and would take or would be annoying to do otherwise, right? It's super easy to use, and that's also what I would do. Like use it, try to set up basically get data into it, transform the data with it. Basically prepare the data for someone who can then use a visualization tool like Power BI or something to
Yeah.
visualize it, and then also do these transformation tasks with it. I think that's a cool setup that you're going to learn a lot with it, and it's
Yeah.
easy to set up as it looks.
There is a third use case I wanted to
Yeah, cool.
cover, and because this is really interesting. It might be not less of your audience, the audience which is watching, but let me know. It's regarding data apps. And by data apps, I don't really mean by standard BI tools, like you mentioned for BI, but a bit more like front-end tools like React, so embedded analytics into products. So let's say you look at LinkedIn, your analytics, or YouTube, or any application. So not a BI tool, but analytics that you're going to serve to different customers. And usually that involve, building a web application, a front-end tool. And this is going to use a cache layer or a compute layer. There is also data apps framework that you may have heard, like Streamlit,
Cool.
Observable X, that kind of do that, right? But there is always a big challenge that this data is often sitting in data warehouse, right? And there is kind of a segregation between the operational database, which is often a transactional database like Postgres, MySQL, and then the source of truth is in the data warehouse or a data lake, right? And so how do you cache that and bring it back um, to operational application without too much custom, glue? Because I've done this glue multiple times. There is multiple option. You have some pipeline that push from S3 to the operational database or whatsoever. But here, the beauty of thing, I'm sorry, there is something wrong with let me, with the logo here. I just found this. Let me bring here it's better. But the thing with DuckDB is that it can run in the browser. And what this means to WebAssembly. And WebAssembly is a technology, basically, to really put it simply, a container for low-level code application that's used basically C++, Rust, so like really heavy application. Figma, so the design tool, for example. So Figma is using WebAssembly to run this complex application. And they're using, so it's writing in C++ or Rust, I don't know by heart, and basically package that application. DuckDB is written in C++, and you can use it to WebAssembly. So that means that when you load the data first, like what's the difference here? Because a lot of people say, yeah, but maybe it's just another cache database. You can use SQLite, you can use any, there is a Chrome DB, or I don't know, Chrome has its own browser database. But here the difference is that you can run queries in your browser, which means that if you lose internet, as long as the data is locally, every compute operation is happening locally. And so that avoids compute costs on the cloud and push back, you leverage basically more your local client here. And so that's a unique architecture where, that's why we call it the 1.5 architecture, where part of the database is on your client on the browser, and some part can be on the cloud if you need to scale. And so I have also a demo for that. I can share the link if you want to play with this. It's a simple app with using data on MotherDuck. So I'm just gonna fill my token. So if you don't have a MotherDuck account, you just go sign up, and basically it's using a shared database. So now I'm connected to MotherDuck behind the scene with those graphs. Okay. And if I'm taking this is data a graph with Seattle weather, and if I'm filtering here, you see I have a different result back there, right? And look what's happening here. I'm moving the filter. Do you know what's happening behind the scene? Behind the scene, there is multiple queries being done in my browser. So it's not going to the server because the data set is there, but it's running multiple queries locally. And that's why it's so fast. Like I'm running a filter and it's directly. Let's take 10 millions of rows around flights delay. Same thing. I'm going to take my filter here to narrow it down. And you see everything is
Wow.
moving downstairs. We had a customer saying that he was thinking of adding delay because people were like, is it working? Like people are so used that when they change a filter, there is something which is computing and then the dashboard is being displayed, right?
True. Yeah.
But here, because all the data is local, is on my browser, I'm not using anymore the modern cloud resource, so less expensive and better experience. So this is what DuckDB WASM is all about. So avoid useless cloud costs, improve user experience, and also simple setup to hydrate your data. And when I mean hydrate, it's really about let me show this one about refreshing your data sets, right? Not having custom pipelines. Like my mother duck data set is up to date. I just need to refresh the client. So it's a simple, it's automatic for you. So we have this concept, which is dual queries. And so the client will know if it needs to use mother duck cloud compute or local compute. So yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, that was a lot, I guess. I don't know if there's other question. I think there's seen.
There are a few questions. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to maybe finish on this, which is the modern duck ecosystem, because DuckDB again is great when you test things locally, but typically for like a Power BI and so on, at some point, if you want to share your dashboard, you need to have the data hosted on the cloud. This is where modern duck comes into play, and so we have a lot of integration within the data ecosystem. We talked about DBT, but there is also SQL Mesh. There is other data science tool, BI tools, orchestration, and the full list is on our documentation website. I can also share that with you. So that's the full list of what we support.
Okay. I'm going to put this also in the chat. Cool. I think like all these integrations, that is one of the things I like most. Like that
Yeah,
it's
it's inevitable, right? If you're building a data product nowadays, you need to be compatible with different file format, with different tools. That's how it is.
one question I had. Back to the example with the UI. Quickly, like these like you shown the one with 10 million rows or something. So where's the data then actually stored in this?
So
Like
in MotherDuck, first,
yes.
initially. So what happened behind the scene is that it's connected to MotherDuck like I did with the CLI, right? It's getting the data
To
and
my
then
basically to my computer, or what do you mean?
to your computer.
Okay.
I mean, what is needed depending on the filter you have currently on the dashboard, right? And then if there is other filters and the data set is already there, then the other queries is going to be run locally. And so that's what happening. It's like here is like you get a first data local, and then basically all the other queries is happening within local. You're not doing any network traffic and cloud compute on those.
So you can basically also in this setup leverage the features from a OLAP data store, although it's basically running just the visualization in the browser.
Yeah. And so that's a really good
like
point.
this.
Is that often, like I've seen a lot of like software engineer, they're not keen of putting an OLAP data store as a front to feed an operational application because of the response time. But you see here, the response time actually is pretty fast. And the thing is that in that case, you're actually the OLAP store is just more as a syncing device first, and then the rest of the OLAPs, compute is happening locally. So this is actually what software engineer likes, because they say, oh, okay, then I don't even need to worry about, like, the first connection is done, and then after it's done on the client side, and it's not my problem. So versus having those query running on their database to do that, yeah. It also means that if you have thousands of user, each one gets their single tenant, right? So thousand of user, thousand will have their local queries running. So yeah, that scales also completely differently than a standard distributed system where you have the client just sending text over the wire right
That's
there.
true.
So we use this to send text, basically, right? That
Yeah. Make
yeah.
a query and then hopefully get the results back.
Yes.
That's okay. So we had a few more questions before we
Yeah.
finish here. Santiago was asking, what about data sharing and security? Is there some in-house tool for DuckDB?
So this is where Mother Duck comes into play with the shares, because DuckDB is goal is to provide the best embedded analytical database. And so when you start to have these multiplayer modes where you need to collaborate and interact, this is what Mother Duck is bridging the gap. And I'm gonna share with you the link about how the shares are working. But basically, you can isolate the different shares from within an organization. So typically, people create an organization in Mother Duck and then share within their organization, and we'll add more granularity in terms of access. But that's basically how it works. But DuckDB by itself doesn't provide those things, and that's not their goal. It's like SQLite doesn't provide you, access control.
Then another one was from Sinish. Just turned 25 and I'm currently working as an ETL developer with SSIS, TSQL. Am I doomed? What steps do I take next? I think Mehdi shows the next steps, right?
I want you to. Yeah, I'm curious about your answer on that.
No, I think that is focusing on these kind of technologies that we're right now talking about, broadening the skill set and starting gradually moving away from this. And as we've seen, this, like DuckDB, you can do ETL with it. You can extract the data from the source. You can do transformations. You can basically, let's say, load it into a file or just keep it in DuckDB if you have it.
Yeah.
Create yourself a data structure there. I think these are the things that are important for people like Sanish to get into, because they already have some knowledge in there.
Yeah. So I think it's that you need to explore what's outside of your work. And the beauty of it is that when I started engineering and you started also, it was much harder to have side projects, free side projects. So you needed to have an on-premise cluster with like servers. Like AWS didn't have or was just new EMR when I started. So like you couldn't there wasn't free tier. Like today, Mother Duck, like there is a future of Mother Duck. You can start and do a lot of like production ready project at a certain size without any cost except your time, which is magic. Before was not the case. Which means that if you invest into that and you get the grasp of how difficult it is or simple it is, because sometimes it's more difficult, then you get like a knowledge on like what's the product gap between what I'm currently using on my company and what's available on the market. I think it's really important to experiment and not jump too fast on hype. Huh? That's not what I'm saying. But because it's free, like the cost is just your time, then it's definitely interesting to invest. It was the same with DBT, it was open source. That's why it got a lot of traction, right? Um, you have a lot of open source project that you can start and a lot of free tier. So I would definitely recommend if you are comfortable with SQL, get your hands on DuckDB, do some little analytics and projects, and you get that for free as a portfolio. Worst case.
Exactly. It's usually you when you do stuff like this, you can do very nice visualizations with it. You can very easily document this. You get yourself some data from Kaggle that you can use, and create yourself a small project. But I think what you've said with don't go too fast. That's also something like you could start with DuckDB locally, try it out, then either go to try out Mother Duck, or then just immediately say, okay, now that I have a grasp on it, I tried around, I created a project. Now let's connect the next thing to it. Let's use DBT. Let's use the next thing, and then this way, then let's say, okay, now you have all this. Let's start with creating the data and putting the data on AWS. Then you're going to get into AWS and how does S3 work? How can I put data in S3 and so on? And this way, you can develop.
And the problem the problem with companies and so on is that sometimes you've been given a given technology, you don't know who decide this. And I think it's good to zoom out and say, if I were to start in a new greenfield company analytics, how would I do it? Like no one is telling me which tools to do. And I think it's really important because that raise a couple of questions like, oh, but wait, this access management is building a house. How do you do that in practice, right? So those kind of little thing, it's just making you a bit more curious on how things works together rather than I've been giving this tool to do this job.
That's true. Roman was asking if there's a way you can share these Excel draw workflows.
Yeah, of course. So let me scaling. I'll share just in a couple of seconds. Yeah.
Or just put it on your LinkedIn, and people should go to your LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, it's just I'm not familiar with the share features.
Don't worry, we can also put this in the YouTube video.
Yeah.
Below.
But here I have it. There you go.
Okay.
It just took me just 1 sec to clean up like the other stuff, and there you go.
Okay, I put it in the chat. Yeah, so in the link of the video or the live stream, we have also the link to Mother Duck, and I'm guessing also the very easy access for the documentation of DuckDB through there. Maybe.
Yeah, that's about it. I think that's a lot, but we give like 3 use case. I think it was a fun challenge. I like this challenge because I cannot find any other solution. The day I will have find another solution, I may change the challenge, but yeah, so reading easily from Parquet, using the cloud, showing that works well with DBT and other ETL tool, and then the WASM thing, which is pretty interesting new architecture design.
Yeah. When we finish here, maybe please quickly stay here in the chat here with me for a sec. Yeah, I think it's for me. Like I knew roughly how it worked, but this was very interesting. I mean, there were a lot of features I didn't know about, and I think it's very useful. And I like it that it goes into the right direction. Like now you're doing this. Hopefully, this leads also other companies to like change and to embrace.
Yeah, to simplify the developer experience. Yeah,
embrace simplification, because it's very often it's too annoying, and then people are stuck at a platform, and the company made the decision we are going to use platform X, and they are stuck with the annoying tasks of like getting the data and you know. So I think it's really cool. Thank you a lot for being here, Mehdi. It was again a pleasure having you on. Hopefully everybody else also was happy with this. Daryl says thanks. Put in the chat here. Also after the stream, you can put in the chat. It's going to land in the comments of this video. Put your stuff and questions. We're going to answer them. Also check out Mehdi's. Mehdi, where do people find you most likely? On LinkedIn? Where are you most of the time?
I'm already on it. Look at this. It's gonna come in a second. Normally, I think I message on the YouTube chat. It's not coming. Maybe there is a filter because
I think there's a filter. I think I need to post it.
So yeah,
post it in the private chat here.
Yeah,
and
here.
Post it.
Any folks can basically ping me on LinkedIn. My DM are open if you have question. Yeah, I'm always happy to help around data in general and DuckDB. That's, I know a few stuff about it.
Yeah, very good. Thanks. And yeah, check out Mother Duck. Link is in the description of the video. And again, thanks, Mehdi.